Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
here we go.
Well, if you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep... I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, you know, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats...
The White House is suspending CNN chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta's press pass until further notice. The word came down hours after Acosta asked the president questions at the news conference this afternoon. Jim joins us now. So take us through what's going on.
Yeah, I went back to the White House actually to do a live shot for your program. Just before 8 o'clock, and when I arrived at the gate, the Secret Service came out and informed me that my press credentials were being, I guess, revoked temporarily, suspended, and the Secret Service officer came over to me and asked me to hand over my credential. And I did, and I told him, I said, listen, I know you're a professional, you're just doing your job, and thanks for your service, and handed him a credential I've had for 5 years.
I want to read a reaction from a few of your colleagues covering the White House. Jeff Mason from Reuters just tweeted, I was seated next to Acosta at today's press conference and did not witness him placing his hands, that's in quotes, on the young intern, as the White House alleges. He held onto the microphone as she reached for him. Peter Baker from the New York Times tweeted, false predicate to punish a reporter. This is what the president wants. If he really thought Acosta was unfair, then why did he call on him? Because he wants the confrontation. Maggie Haberman tweeting, Acosta, who the White House is alleging, quote, placed his hands on the young intern, said, quote, pardon me, ma'am, as he tried to ask his question. I also want to read a statement that CNN's just released. The statement reads, the White House announced tonight that it has revoked the press pass of CNN chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta. It was done in retaliation for his challenging questions at today's press conference. In an explanation, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders lied. She provided fraudulent accusations and cited an incident that never happened. This unprecedented decision is a threat to our democracy, and the country deserves better. Jim Acosta has our full support. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I was just trying to ask a question of the president at this press conference, and it was obviously a question they didn't like. It was about his racist ad on the caravan that they were running before the midterms. He and I were going back and forth there, and as you can see in this video, this intern came up to me. They're describing her as an intern. I don't really know who she is, and attempted to take the microphone away from me All I can say at that point is that I was trying to hang on to the microphone so I could continue to ask the president questions. Obviously, I didn't put my hands on her or touch her, as they're alleging, and it's just unfortunate that the White House is saying this. We all try to be professionals over there, and I think I handled myself professionally, and I appreciate all of the comments from my colleagues. I do think, Anderson, that this is a test for all of us. I do think they're trying to shut us down to some extent inside the White House press corps, and to some extent I think they're trying to send a message to our colleagues.
And you had no advance warning of this. This was simply when you got to the White House to go do a live shot, you were just informed by Secret Service.
Yeah, I saw the statement on my phone from Sarah Sanders that my press credentials were being revoked. I thought, well, maybe I'll get inside the White House for one more live shot on your show. And at that point, I was simply blocked from entering the facility. As a matter of fact, there was an officer who stood in front of the doorway to the security booth that I've gone through every day for the last, or every working day that I come to the White House for the last 5 years. So it was a pretty surreal experience. I never thought in this country that I wouldn't be able to go and cover the President of the United States simply because I was trying to ask a question.